Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Kuf Chof Ches Amud Aleph at the very top. Our Mishnah had taught us that a person can be mafani, can clear away certain things that are not muksa items for mitzvah purposes, even though they might be a tircha in general, and one cannot then mafane for reshus, but when for a mitzvah, the Chachamim gave a heter. The Mishnah brought a list of things that are not muksa that one can be mafane. Now our Gemara discusses that list in the Mishnah that talks about those things that are yes muksa and therefore also to mafane even for a mitzvah purpose. Says the Mishnah that's quoted over here, Avaloi es ha-tevil. Frag the Gemara right away, tevel is something you cannot eat. Certainly it's muksa pshita. Answers the Gemara, lo tzricha betevel tvul midirabanan. We're talking about a tevel that's midirabanan. Shezaro ba'ati she'eno nakuf. Unlike a flower pot that has a hole in it, this flower pot does not have a hole in it. And therefore, it's only tevel midirabanan. We might have thought you could then go ahead and move that. Kamash malan, it's muktzah. The next item that the Mishnah lists over here, v'lo meiser rishon shelo nitla chumason. So that seems again to be very straightforward. After all, if it's meiser rishon that's given to the Levi, that you didn't take truma, so certainly it's something that's muktzah. Ask the Gemara again, pshita. Lo tzricha, the Gemara says there's a chiddush here as well. Shehigdimu b'kri shenoto mimenu meiser v'lo nitla mimenu truma gedoyla. Here we're talking about there was a kri. Again, the balasodeh, after he takes all the tefuah and he makes a pile and then smooths out the pile, that means now it's now chayiv in trumas and meisers. He then did not give meiser truma gedoyla to the kohen, and he was over in iser deraisa, and he gave to the Levi his meiser without giving the truma gedoyla first to the kohen. So here we're saying that over here, even though that he gave the meiser to the Levi, and of course the Levi will give his truma to the kohen, but since he didn't give the truma gedoyla to the kohen first, so therefore it's off limits. Mao deseima kida'omar le Rav Papa le'Abaye. I might have thought like Rav Papa asked Abaye that why isn't this different than when the balasada takes his grain and he does not yet make the pile and smooth it out, and then the Levi is given his share of meiser, and there we say that it's valid, it's true. It was incorrect what the balasada did do, and he was over in Isser, but nonetheless, we don't say that the balasada now has to then give truma gedoyla, or the Levi has to give now truma gedoyla from that meiser. We say that he can go ahead and eat the meiser as is. The truma gedoyla was skipped, and that's it. So there in the Reisha, we said that indeed you can go ahead and move that. So ask Rav Papa to Abaye, why can't you say the same thing over here even after the kri, after the pile was smoothed out? To which the Gemara says, Kamash malan kedeshoni le Abaye. Like Abaye had taught, and it responded to Rav Papa's question. And he said there's a difference, whether it was a kri or not. If it was a kri, a mound of grain that was smoothed out, then it has the designation of degancha, and the pasuk says reishis degancha. That means you have to first give your truma gedoyla, then it's ma'akev. Whereas if it wasn't yet a pile that was smoothed out, it wasn't yet a chayiv in trumas and meisers, so if it was skipped the truma gedoyla, so we don't go back and say that it's invalid, it's not ma'akev. The next item in the Mishnah is loy es meiser sheni. And here it says he didn't then take meiser sheni. So again, ask the Gemara pshita. If he didn't take meiser sheni, then it's straightforward that it would be muktzah. So of course this grain is now kadosh. You cannot go ahead and move it on Shabbos. Answers the Gemara lo tzricha the nifdu v'lo nifdu kilchaz. He did, but he was poideh the meiser sheni and the hekdesh. However, he wasn't poideh in the correct fashion. As follows: Meiser shepodoi al gabei simon. He was poided the meiser onto an asimon, onto a coin that does not have a tzura. V'derachmana amar tzarta kesef biyotcha. Davar sheish bo tzura. You have to be poida onto a coin that has a tzura. And therefore, he was poida onto an asimo, and it's not valid. Hekte shechilu al gabi karka. He was makdish, he was mechala the hekdesh, rather, he's poida the hekdesh onto karka. And that's also invalid. Because the Rachmana Omar v'nosan hakesef v'kamla has to be on metaltalin. And therefore, again, although he was poida, but since he did it not that in a postal way, in a way that's not valid, therefore you cannot move it even for a mitzvah purpose. V'lo es haluf rather, the Mishnah said you cannot also move this kidneys called luf. Ton Rabban, the Gemara now brings a brisa metaltlin es hachatzav mibnei shehu meichel litzvoyim. You can metaltel certain types of grass because they are food for deer. V'eshachar mibnei shehu meichel liyonim, and mustard because it is food for the doves. Reb Shimon Gamliel Omer af metaltlin shivrei zechuchis mibnei shehu meichel lina'amiyos. He said you can also metaltel glass, even pieces of glass, shards, because they are food for ostriches. Omar la Rabbi Nosson, ela me'ata chavile zmarois yetiltelu mibnei shetei meichel lepilin. So asks Rabbi Nosson to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, then you'll say that you can also move chavile zmarois, vines, also on Shabbos because they are fitting. They are something that you can give to the pilim, to the elephants. The same logic that you're giving and saying that it's valid to move glass that is broken because, after all, they're food for ostriches. So then I'll say the same thing when it comes to the vines. And we know that vines are not valid to move unless they were already designated in advance before Shabbos. The Gemara says that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said that when it comes to the ostriches, those are more common, whereas the elephants are not common, and therefore that which is common, you can go ahead and move it because it's not muktzah. Omar Ameimar asks, or explains, that we're talking about, that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is referring to over here, that he has ostriches. That's what makes it so that it becomes valid to go ahead and move on Shabbos because they eat the broken glass. Rav Ashi now he protests and asks against Ameimar's logic. But after all, Rabbi Nosson, his objection to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel was just that you can move chavile zmuros, right? Because they are food for pulin. He doesn't for pilin for elephants. He doesn't say anything about having elephants. If you have elephants, then why not? And yet we know that when it comes to these types of vines, we don't see such a thing that it's mutter to metaltil. Ella roy, rather, it means to say that Rav Shimon Gamliel's opinion was that so long it's fitting to give to ostriches, then you can go ahead and move the shards, the broken glass. So too, hachanami roy. So too, when it comes to the zmarois, lefi Rav Shimon Gamliel at least, you would be able to move them because they are fitting for feeding a elephant. Omar Abaye, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva, Kulhu Svira Lahu Kol Yisrael Bnei Malachim Him. All four of these Tanoim hold that Bnei Yisrael have the status of Bnei Malachim as follows. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Hoda Amor, in the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says you can feed a luf to a raven, and therefore since that's how Bnei Malachim, they raise ravens, you can go ahead and feed a luf. They're not muktzah. So too, you can move a luf even if you are a regular bar Yisrael, because Bnei Yisrael are Bnei Malachim Heim. Rabbi Shimon Disnan Bnei Malachim Sachin Al Gabi Makoseyan Shemen Vered Shekain Darkin Shal Bnei Malachim Lasuch Bechol. The Tanna Kama over here says that the Bnei Malachim can use vered, rose type of oil that is very expensive, because during the week, since they put on their skin, even when they're not sick, so too they can put it on their skin on Shabbos, and it won't be designated or looked upon as a refuah. So Rabbi Shimon Oimer Kol Yisrael B'nei Malachim. He says not only B'nei Malachim, but even all of Klal Yisrael have the designation as B'nei Malachim. You can also use the Shem and Vered on Shabbos. Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Akiva, as follows: the Tanya, Harei Shahayu Noishim By Elef Mana. If a person owes 1,000 mana, that means he owes a lot of money to a creditor. V'levush itztila basmeya mana, and he's wearing an expensive garment that is worth 100 mana. Mafshitin oiso malbishin oiso itztila haruyaloi. We require that he take it off and sell it to pay back his loan, and then give him a garment that a regular person of his stature would wear. And therefore we make him pay his creditor with the expensive garment, since it's not something that he needs to wear. If it's something that is necessary for him to wear, that's his status, then we wouldn't require that he would go ahead and take off and sell that garment. But since that's not his status, according to this Tana, therefore we give him a Pashita garment and sell the expensive one to pay his creditor. Tana, but it's taught Mishum Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Tana Mishum Rabbi Akiva. Kol Yisrael Ruin La'oisa Itztala. Every Jew have the status as B'nei Malachim, and therefore they're fitting to wear this expensive garment, which we require that we would not require him to sell in order to pay off his creditors. The Mishnah now that is quoted is in regards to the Seif of our Mishnah when it comes to Chavile Kash and Chavile Eitzim, all of these things, these different types of branches of soft branches. We say that they are only going to be non-muktzah if they have been then moved and designated before Shabbos as animal feed. But if not, then one cannot be using it on Shabbos, it's muktzah. Tanu Rabbanon, the Gemara brings a brayso, Chavile kash v'chavile eitzim v'chavile zrodim, im hiskinon lemaychel behemo metaltalin oison, v'im lav ein metaltalin. If they were designated for animal feed before Shabbos, then they're not muktzah, you can go ahead and metaltal them. But if not, then they are muktzah on Shabbos. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Oimer Chavilin Hanitolin Biyad Achas Mutter L'Taltalon. If chavilin that can be moved with one hand, then that means to say that it's not considered to be something that is extraordinarily heavy and cumbersome. It's not an issue of tircha. So if it's not muksa because they were designated before Shabbos, and it's something that can be moved by one hand, we don't say it's a problem of a tircha. But b'shtei yadayim osli taltlin. But if it's only it's so much that you can carry only with two hands, then it's too cumbersome, and therefore although there's no isser of muktzah, but there's an isser of tircha. Chavile siya ezov v'karnis hichnisan le'etzim. These different types of things that the Gemara will try to explain to us, these various things, if they're designated for eitzim, for firewood, then ein mistaklim bohem b'Shabbos. Then they're muktzah. You can't use them on Shabbos. L'maychal behemo mistapik behem b'Shabbos. But if it's not used for eitzim, then the designation stama is that it's for animal feed, and therefore they could go ahead and be used for Shabbos. The koitem biyad v'oichel. Now these animal feed can also be used for human consumption, although they're normally given for animal to eat. So it says over here, for a person who wants to eat it, he can break them with his hand and eat it. So long as he doesn't use a kli, which is the normal way of doing so during the week, because that would then cause it to be a problem of techina, of grinding, and therefore that would be osir. But to break it with one's hands, one can do. The next opinion says one can then moilil, he can rub it and take out the seeds that way, so it's not a problem of mefarek, and eat it. So long as he doesn't do a lot with a kli, according to Rabbi Yehuda. He can't do a way of moila rubbing it like this with his hands, but rather he has to do with more of a shinui with his fingers alone. Then he can go ahead and do that. It's not a problem of mefarek, and he can eat it that way. Ubilvad, says the Chachamim, shelo yimloil biyod harbe kedershu oise bechol. So long as providing he doesn't then do it a lot, a lot of grain together, so that it will be the way of doing it b'chol. V'chein be'amiso, v'chein befegam, v'chein b'shar minei tavlin. So too when it comes to these various types of herbs. My amisa, what is this amisa that Gemara just mentioned? Answers the Gemara to explain its ninya. The Gemara defines it as a mint. Sia, Omer Rav Yehuda, tzasre. It's a type of herb. Ezoiv, abarta. It's a hyssop. Karonis, karnisa shma. The Gemara says it's called karnisa in Aramaic. I, the person who was selling and asked who wants to buy karnisa, and when he sold it, it was indeed chashe. It's the other type of herb. Ella, you have to say, therefore, Sia is satri, like we said, Ezov is a basra, it's a hyssop, and karnisa is chashe. The Gemara now brings Itmar, the following statement in regards to muktzah. Basar maliach mutir l'taltal b'Shabbos. Meat that is raw but it is salted is mutir l'taltal b'Shabbos, because a person can go ahead and suck it. He can go ahead and eat it that way. Basar tofel, if it's non-salted, so there's a machlekes. Rav Huna Omar mutir l'taltalei. Rav Huna goes after the shita of Rabbi Shimon, and he says it's not considered to be muktzah, and you can metaltal it, even though it doesn't have salt, and it's not going to be really fit for a person to eat. But it's not muktzah, because at the end of the day, he can give it to an animal. Rav Chizda Omar, also l'taltal. Rav Chizda says, like Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, that it's also l'taltal. Rav Huna Omar mutar l'taltal, asked the Gemara. Rav Huna said that it's mutar l'taltal, this basar that's tofil. V'ho Rav Huna Talmid Rav. Rav Huna is a student of Rav. Have of Rav Rabbi Yehuda Svirulei. And Rav goes after the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda that it would be muktzah. The Islay muktzah answers the Gemara that Rav has two different shitas. B'muktzah la'achila sava like Rabbi Yehuda. In regards to then eating the muktzah, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore he would not consume it. B'muktzah l'taltel sava like Rabbi Shimon. But Rav holds in regards to then being metaltel the item, he's more lenient like Rabbi Shimon, and therefore he can metaltel the basar tofel. Rav Chizda Omar also l'talteloi. Rav Chizda, we said, says that it's also l'taltel. Says the Gemara, V'ho Rav Yitzchak bar Ami ikla lebei Rav Chizda. Rav Yitzchak bar Ami went to visit the house of Rav Chizda. V'chozahu bar Avzo dahava kametaltel meishamsha letula. And he saw that the servants in the home of Rav Chizda were metaltel the goose, right, the duck, from the sun and put it into a shady spot. V'om Rav Chizda, this is on the behest of Rav Chizda, who said, Chisaron kis kachazinan hacha. We have expensive, it will be a loss of money over here. So you see from here that Rav Chizda does permit one to then move avza. So here the avza, right, was not salted. So how can he permit then the avza to be moved on Shabbos? When before he said that it's also to move a basar that's tofil? Answers the Gemara, Shiny bar avza de chazi le'umtza. A duck is different, although it's not salted, it's chazi, it's fitting to then be sucked and then having its usage even though it's not salted and it's raw. Because it's soft and it's somewhat edible. Tonu Rabbanon, the Gemara brings a brisa again regarding muksa, dag maliach mutar l'taltaloi. If a salted fish that is raw, it's mutar l'taltal because it's fit for consumption. Dag tofel also l'taltaloi. But if it's a dag tofel, it's not raw, not even to give to your klavim. Therefore, or it's raw to give it, but you set it aside, you're not going to give it to your klavim. You want to eat it for your own purposes, and therefore it's also to metaltel. Basar bein tova bein maliach mutar l'taltaloi. Whereas it comes to basar, whether it is salted or it is not salted, it's mutar l'taltal, because this opinion holds that you can give the non-salted meat to your chayos, to your animals, and therefore that will be a valid usage since you would normally do that. Therefore, it's not muktzah. The Gemara now brings the following brayse: Tanu Rabbanan metaltelin is ha'atzamois. You can go ahead and metaltel bones because those are fitting to give to dogs. We're on top of Kuf Chof Ches Amud Beis, Basar Tafuach, you can then go ahead and give spoiled meat. You can go ahead and metaltel spoiled meat because you can give your spoiled meat to chayos that you have. And therefore that's again a valid usage. Mayim megulin mipnei shehein ruin lechatul, a water that has been left open, exposed. So that mayim megulin can be given to your chatul, to your cat, and therefore it also is not muktzah, because cats, they even eat snakes, so they're not bothered by the venom. So too, if there's venom that was injected inside of the water, then it's not a problem either. Therefore, you can go ahead and metaltel this mayim megulin. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel tells us that it's also to even keep mayim megulin in your presence, because a person might accidentally then drink some of it, and then it'll be a sakana for him. So therefore, one has to get rid of mayim megulim.